You are about to listen to a free portion of the Young Turks. To podcast the complete show, sign up for membership at tytnetwork.com/membership.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks for you guys. This jacket, man, I love this jacket when I'm standing. When I'm sitting, though, it's got a little big man and a little jacket thing. But anyway, I am slightly Tommy boy. I got to learn to live with it. Okay, now put that thought into your head. You're going to look at my jacket the whole show. Okay, but I've got funnier guys to start with. George W. Bush is back. Oh, okay, he's coming in a minute, so hold. But I want to tell you what's happening later in the show. First of all, there's some white folks apparently really mad at Beyonce. No, they're mad at Red Lobster for not being mad at Beyonce. And then remember how there was going to be an anti-Beyonce protest in New York? We have the pictures for you of how that protest wound up. You're going to love that story. Kendrick Lamar with a very powerful statement at the Grammys. You're going to like that story. Later in this hour, we have figured out why Republicans are voting for Trump. I have the answer. And then I will be a little pissed at a Daily Beast article that says that if you're black, you shouldn't vote for Bernie Sanders. In fact, it's white privilege to vote for Bernie Sanders. Oh, boy. That's going to be later in the program. I'm going to get a little bit of anger on that one. But first, let's have some fun and let's have some laughs. And if you're going to have laughs, you're going to go to W. George W. Bush is back. He's in South Carolina, and he's campaigning for his brother, Jeb Bush. You know the Jeb campaign is in bad shape and really desperate when they bring W back out. Now, I want to remind you guys that when he left office, President Bush was not in the 40s in approval rating like President Obama is today. People make those comparisons. No. Was he in the 30s? Was lower, right? No, not in the 30s either. He was in the high 20s. His approval rating was horrific, unprecedented. So now when you watch this clip, you'll see why. Now, he's telling a story about how he was at a diner and something strange happened. But you'll also get nostalgic for the knucklehead. I'm warning you ahead of time. Now, let's watch.
Interesting memory came in Greenville for the 2000 primary. David and Susie and I and Laura went to Tommy's Country's Ham House. And we were eating breakfast. As a matter of fact, I was eating some bacon. When I looked out the window, and a PETA protester dressed as a pig pulled up in a dump truck. He unloaded a huge load of manure in the parking lot to try to prevent me from leaving. It was kind of a sign of things to come. But let me tell you something about the Ham House. Even a steaming pile of manure can't ruin their good bacon.
Come on, man. Is back. So I look out the window. I was eating some bacon. Every word is funny. Every word is funny. It would have been hilarious if he wasn't the most powerful man on earth for 8 years. I saw that and I was like, oh my God, what did we do as a country? What have we done? And what we did was the greatest economic collapse since the Great Depression, the Iraq War, the greatest foreign policy blunder, not only just of our lifetimes, perhaps ever in U.S. history. But what's amazing is I went through this roller coaster of emotions, right? Like, how could we have let that guy be president? To like, come on, he's kind of funny. Right? And then a PETA guy shows up in a pig outfit. And I look out the window. Okay, and then the last thought was, my God, even this clown is better than his brother campaigning. Jeb Bush would have told that story with like, and then a guy in a pig outfit shows up and dumps all this manure on. Come on, give me a break. What am I supposed to do with it? I can't get out of here. There's the manure. Give me a break. They're kicking me out. So in comparison to that, yeah, I guess you're going to need to bring George in to help your campaign. But really, Republicans, you look at that man and you think, man, I am proud. That's the guy I backed. If you do, God help you, man. I can't help but every time Bush comes up, I have the random Bush generator. I'm going to play random ones. Okay, here, I'm going to press a button.
If the job description were what do you do, it's
decision maker.
Okay, another anyway.
And one of the things I've used on the Google is to pull up maps.
That's what you do on the Google. You pull up the maps. Okay, I swear I'm doing this randomly. You see
Extremists.
Extremists.
Our enemies are innovative and resourceful, and so are we. They never stop thinking about new ways to harm our country and our people, and neither do we.
8 years we were afflicted with this guy. Okay. I'm moving. Now, unfortunately, we move to the sadness of today, the humor and the sadness of today. All right. Donald Trump has literally turned this presidential campaign into a reality show. He has reality show contestants running his campaign. Do you remember this woman, Omarosa Manigault? She was one of the more colorful characters on one of the reality shows. I honestly forgot which reality show. I guess it was Apprentice. And she yelled and screamed at everybody. Now she's doing it for the Trump campaign on so-called serious issues in politics. But she's going to do the same tactics she used in the reality shows. Be wild, outrageous, say crazy things, and gather all the attention. And even I couldn't have predicted which direction she was going to go in this clip. Let's watch.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, Omarosa. Nobody thinks George W. Bush
My
is
name
at
is
fault.
Omarosa.
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 Yes, so let's talk about Iraq and let's talk about Donald Trump's positions. When Tamara says that Donald Trump grosses out and it's not substantiated, it's the same difference, boo. You want to come on with big boobs, then you deal with the pronunciation of your name. Look, Donald Trump stands firm on what his position is about us going into Iraq. It is not something that he just threw out there. He's been saying that for a decade.
Why are you bringing up Tamara's boobs?
It's what he stood for. Well, because she started going back talking about, oh, you were a Democrat and you supported Hillary Clinton. If you want to get personal, we can get personal.
Wait,
let's talk about Donald Trump and let's talk about Iraq.
The size of my boobs, considering that this is how I was born. I mean, I'm sorry.
I called you a boob. I'm sorry. I should have called you a boob. I should have called you a boob.
Your boobs had to do
but
with.
let's focus back on Donald Trump.
Since we're talking about it, I might as well take off my shirt.
Let me ask you this:
Can we talk about Donald Trump?
So, but you see what she did? She created a circus-like atmosphere. Now everybody's watching, shaking their heads like, oh my God, what's going on? Boobs, balls, cock, what? Right? So, and then if you notice, it worked. And the other lady said, if we're talking about my boobs, maybe I should take my shirt off. There you go. We're totally in the middle of a reality show, right? By the way, this is all on Fox Business. And that wasn't even the most offensive part of this entire interview. They were talking about 9/11 and whose fault it was and how it was Bush's fault. And Bartiromo, the host on Fox Business, started the conversation by saying, let's face it, Omarosa, nobody thinks that George W. Bush is at fault. Really? Nobody thinks that? I got news for you. A lot of people think that. Okay. But what this carnival barker has done, Donald Trump, overall, is amazing. And at least on the Republican side, the American people are eating it up. Like, oh, yeah, I remember Omarosa. Oh, yeah, you know, that's right. Oh, yeah, he should get the kid who sung in American Idol. There's going to be a great presidential race. Okay, but I have breaking news here. We have found a picture of Donald Trump's next communications director. Well, he is good with hype, and he does know how to keep time. All right. Next, I'm moving today. Okay? From one set of goofballs to another. Now we go to Rubio. Okay. Now, here's what I know about Marco Rubio. He loves Ronald Reagan. So he's going to do an ad here that is reminiscent of Ronald Reagan because Ronald Reagan did the Morning in America ad. He's going to mention Morning in America here, but there's going to be a giant fail in this ad somewhere. See if you can find it.
It's morning again in America. Today, more men and women are out of work than ever before in our nation's history. People paying more in taxes than they will for food, housing, and clothing combined. Nearly $20 trillion in national debt for the next generation. Double what it was just 8 years ago. This afternoon, almost 6,000 men and women will be married. And with growing threats and growing government, they'll look forward with worry to the future. It's morning again in America, and under the leadership of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, our country is more vulnerable, divided, and diminished than ever before. Why would we ever want 4 more years again of that?
All right, so let's go through all the fails. Now, if you're going to talk about policy issues, first of all, I got news for you, Michael Rubio. You're not running against Barack Obama. You're running against the other Republicans. It's like, but these guys love it. I hate Obama more than you do. Okay, so I'm going to run an ad about that. Okay, you're not in the general election. You're not running against Hillary Clinton either. Okay, that's minor. We move on to the facts of the case. He says more people are out of work now than ever before. Unemployment's at around 5%. That's actually pretty damn good. Let's be honest. The wages are flat, and I can't stand that, and we've talked about that on the show. But unemployment numbers are pretty good. And in fact, when George W. Bush left office, we were losing 800,000 jobs per month. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay? So now onto the issue of the debt. He's like, oh, our debt has doubled. What he didn't tell you is the Republicans left Barack Obama $1.2 trillion debt every single year, and he knocked that down by 50%. They didn't mention it. But that's not why we're talking about this. That's standard political lying by the Republicans. The real fail is the funny one in the beginning. Let's see.
It's morning again in America.
Wait a minute. That was a Canadian flag. It turns out the entire opening scene is in Canada. Oops. These guys, oh, we're so patriotic, America. I don't even know where America is. That's Vancouver in the background, you jackasses. Okay, and there's the Canadian flag. How did you not catch this? It turns out they knew. They paid the guy $80 to shoot this, and it's the Vancouver city line behind him. Who cares? These are Republican voters. They don't know anything anyway. Okay, yeah, sure. Blame it on Canada. All right, well, just next time, little truth in advertising. Just tell us about how great it is when it's morning in Canada. Okay. Now, if Ted Cruz had done that ad, it would have been a little worse. We're moving forward. Okay. Donald Trump, with another Trump-nado, he did a press conference yesterday and said about 100 crazy things. We only got 3 for you because I'm going to run out of time. Okay. Now, mixed into those statements were some things that are enormously true and some things that are enormously false. So let's start with the positive, things that are actually true that nobody else was saying before.
May think that he kept the country safe after 9/11. Are you worried that that?
What does that mean? He kept the country safe after 9/11. In other words, we had this major catastrophe, and after that, what does that mean? I don't know. See, I've heard that for years. You know what? I've heard that for years, Jeremy. I've heard for years he kept the country safe after 9. What does that mean after? What about during 9/11? I was there. I lost a lot of friends that were killed in that building. The worst attack ever in this country. It was during his presidency. You mean we had the worst attack ever? By the way, after that we did okay. That's meaning the team scored 19 runs in the first inning, but after that we played well. I don't think so.
Why didn't any Democrat say that over and over again? Isn't it amazing? What a giant fail by the entire Democratic Party and the entire media. Like, imagine if Al Gore was president. You think the Republicans would have been like, oh, now let's be fair to Al Gore. It's only 9 months into his presidency. No, let's be fair to Al Gore. He got a memo saying Bin Laden determined to attack inside the United States, and he didn't do anything. What do you think Fox News would have done to him? They would have ripped him to shreds. But for all this time, for 15 years, nobody says the most obvious thing in the world. And by the way, that's why Trump is winning. Because he comes out and says things that are, yes, sometimes maniacal, and we're going to get to that in a second, and sometimes things that are just common sense. People go, yeah, that's true. Oh, wait, yeah, that's right. 9/11 happened on his watch. Why does it take a madman to say something so obvious? Why did the media not say this for 15 years? Okay, so that's the good. Now, let's go to the bad before we get to the ugly.
You know, Saddam Hussein was a bad guy. But one thing about him, he killed terrorists. Now Iraq is Harvard for terrorism. You want to become a terrorist, you go to Iraq. Saddam Hussein understood, and he killed terrorists. Bad guy. But if the president and other people, and frankly, Obama was no better, because the way he got us out was a disaster. Look what's happened since then, a disaster. Shouldn't have been there, shouldn't have gotten out the way we got out.
Okay, it's not really how it works. In Trump's crazy mind, he thinks, well, now there's a lot of terrorists in Iraq now, and when Saddam Hussein was there weren't as many terrorists. So they must have been there all along. It's just that Saddam kept killing them. Because the answer is always just kill people, right? So he was just kill. Saddam leaves, they're all there, nobody's bothering to kill them. It's not really how it works. Saddam Hussein, look, I can't believe I'm saying this, but this was a ridiculous justification they used for war. This did not justify invading a whole country and starting off this Pandora's box that wound up with more terrorism. But Saddam Hussein did fund some terrorism in the Middle East. Now, it wasn't al-Qaeda. He hated al-Qaeda. That's true, right? It certainly wasn't Shia terrorists. He hated them as well. But to say that all he did was kill terrorists is not true. Not true, right? Now, as it turned out, after he left, it was such pandemonium and chaos because we got rid of Saddam's army and we created a vacuum and we had the Sunnis and the Shias fighting together, that terrorism arose out of that. But he's a simpleton. He doesn't think of those things that way. He's like, Saddam, no terrorists. After Saddam, terrorists. Saddam must have killed the terrorists. Oh, yeah. Okay. Now we go to the ugly. Let's watch this.
I will tell you, I have never, ever met a person that lies more than Ted Cruz. I have never, ever seen anything like it. He did it with Ben Carson. He did it with the voter violation fraud deal that he did. I mean, it was a fraud. But I've never seen anybody that lied as much as Ted Cruz. And he goes around saying he's a Christian. I think he's unstable. No, I think he's an unstable person. I watch him, I see him, and I always say he's a good debater, but he can't talk. The guy, literally, he's a good debater. I don't even think he's a good debater. I mean, I heard he's a good debater. I don't personally see he's a very good debater. But he is a very unstable person. That's just my opinion. Yeah, well, he's printed lies. He said, I'm pro-choice and I'm pro-life. He's printed lies. I mean, they're so... But most people can't fight it. But he's a liar. So he'll go up and he'll absolutely lie. And boom, boom, boom. Absolute lies. Now, he'll apologize, but I don't want an apology after the election. I want the apology before. And if he doesn't, I'm going to bring a lawsuit because, in my opinion, based on what I've learned over the last 2-3 days from very top lawyers, he doesn't even have the right to serve as president or even run as president. He was born in Canada. So I will bring that lawsuit if he doesn't apologize.
Yeah. That's a stupid move. Look, a lot of times the pundits attack Trump because they don't get it. He talks like a third grader. That's true. But the voters think like third graders on the Republican side. So all the pundits are like, no, Rubio is a super smooth politician. Hey, knuckleheads, the voters don't want super smooth politicians. They want an alpha male like this that goes, ooh, he liar, he bad guy, I good guy, right? Okay. But in this case, you don't look like a tough guy or an alpha male when you threaten to sue people. If he doesn't apologize to me, I'm going to sue him. That looks weak in any primary. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, or not. That's a bad move among Republican voters to cry about the other guy's lying and threaten to sue him. See, that's the thing. Donald Trump lives in his own bubble. Anytime anyone does something he doesn't like, what does he do? He's rich. So he uses power and money to intimidate them. The number one way you do that is you bring a lawsuit against the other guy. He can't afford to fight you in that lawsuit, and you intimidate him. Trump's been doing that for so long, he doesn't realize that that's a dick move, and that the American people don't like that. And even Republican voters who like you when you're a tough guy are like, oh, you're going to cry over that and sue him? Kind of a weak-ass move. So that part I don't think is going to work out for him. But right now, he has such a gigantic lead in South Carolina. New poll out today, 35-18. It's pretty much doubling Rubio and Cruz. So all of this is probably immaterial. He's probably steamrolling these guys anyway. And overall, what the Republican voters here is a guy who's willing to say things on top of his mind. Even if they don't agree with what he's saying, they feel like, well, at least he's not a phony and a fake like all those other politicians. And that's the main reason he's winning. All right, I got to take a break. When we come back, I'll tell you the other reason that supporters, especially in South Carolina, where we just did the polling, are supporting Donald Trump, and then my anger towards someone who claims that it's a white privilege if you vote for Bernie Sanders. All right, that when we return. I actually love that music. That's my favorite. I don't know where you found that from, but that makes me want to go to a Bhangra blowout. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but that's fun. It's a celebration of Diwali. Okay, For Today writes in, she's talking about Hillary Clinton. She's openly and directly insulting our intelligence right to our face on the issue of her saying, me taking millions of dollars, of course it doesn't affect me. Ruth Iverson says, so Hillary's strategy is, quote, I'm unaffected by the bribes. No wonder she doesn't win elections. Terrible strategy. Seth Jones says, thank you for reporting the facts and expecting us to make up our minds. This is the news's job. Only hashtag TYT Live gets it. Thank you, Seth. Appreciate it, man. So a lot of people come with bullshit. A lot of people talk about, oh, I know this and I know that and I know who's electable and who isn't. As you can tell, I'm still steaming mad about the Daily Beast article. Steaming mad sounds funny.
The Daily Beast is interesting because a lot of times they have great articles with lots of facts, and I love reading their publication. Then every once in a while, I feel like because they feel like they need to be balanced, they'll have like some sort of like conservative hit job on there.
Yeah. Look, I can't speak to all their articles, and I can't speak to their whole history. But this week, it's been wall to wall. Hillary is awesome. Mm-hmm. Bernie's the worst. Mm-hmm. Everyone among all my buddies knows it, so it must be true.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck off with that bullshit. Okay, so look. All right, one last thing about it. Then we got 1,000 stories in the second hour that are great. Okay, they're insulting our intelligence. Like they think, oh, you children. Oh, you always thought all the hippies were going to win. You thought Nader was going to win. You thought Kucinich was going to win. Except check the record. We never thought they were going to win. We never said that. The Young Turks never said Dennis Kucinich was going to win in the past. Even up until about even less than a year ago, we were skeptical that Bernie Sanders could win. Why? Because we spent a lifetime in a system where Bernie Sanders didn't have a chance of winning. Our job is to try to tell you the truth as best as... It's not going to help you to lie to you about pretty little dreams, right? We never said Nader was going to win. In fact, we argued vehemently against Nader in both the 2000 elections and the 2004 elections, to his face, right? But she's, oh, you children, you know, oh, you know, with your idealism. No, we in Washington and New York, we know better, okay? Fuck off with that. So anyway, as you can tell, I'm still pissed. Okay, let's move forward.
All right. Manny Pacquiao is running for Senate in the Philippines, and recently he was asked what his current views are on same-sex marriage. Now, back in 2012, he had to apologize after he had some choice words for the gay community. Of course, since he's deeply religious, he doesn't believe in equality for gay individuals. Well, his recent statements about gay people were not nice either. He said the following: "It's just common sense. Have you seen any animal having male-to-male or female-to-female relations? If you have male-to-male or female-to-female relationships, then people are worse than animals."
Okay, let's just talk about how fundamentally stupid Manny Pacquiao is. So you good people of the Philippines are going to elect this guy to be a senator. Jesus Christ, I feel bad for you and your Senate. Don't get me wrong, we're filled to the rim with idiots in the U.S. Senate, too. Of course there are male-to-male and female-to-female relationships in the animal kingdom. You schmuck. At least Google it before you talk. So now you're in politics, right? You're running a political campaign. Mm-hmm. Didn't any of your probably thousands of advisors, given how much money you have, didn't any of them say, hey, oh, don't say that, that's really embarrassing. Mm-hmm. Actually, in the animal kingdom, there's a ton of bisexual sex, even much more so than among humans. Chimpanzees have sex with each other to no end, male, female, male, female, nonstop. Penguins have more male-to-male sex than humans do. That is such an unbelievably ignorant statement. And by the way, I mean, God, are there no reporters in the world? You got Manny Pacquiao, this moron, in a press conference saying stuff like this or in an interview. Why don't you ask him a follow-up? First of all, that's not true. Mm-hmm. So, secondly, about the penguins who have gay sex, do you think they're going to hell?
He probably does.
No, and get the moron to say, yeah, I think there's penguins are going to go to hell. They'll be particularly miserable there because they really like the cold. Okay.
Well, look, I don't live in the Philippines. I just know what I've read about the Philippines. I actually have a really good friend who lives there as well. And it is a deeply religious country. So they haven't moved as far forward as the U.S. has when it comes to gay rights. And by the way, the U.S. still has to move forward when it comes to gay rights. So I think this kind of speech is kind of starting to get rejected, which is good. Manny Pacquiao had to apologize after he said this, which is good. But at the same time, there is this anti-gay mentality among a lot of people living in the Philippines right now because of its religious, beliefs.
Okay, look, as anybody who watches the Young Turks knows, I'm very adamant that you don't hold everybody in a religion responsible for the beliefs of the fundamentalists of that religion. Okay. Now, at the same time, I also say, look, there is a cultural war going on. I've been saying that for over a decade on the Young Turks. That's the one thing I agree with Bill O'Reilly on. There is a cultural war, and generally, in the long run, we're going to win, and we're in the middle of winning now. When I say we, I mean the people on the side of reason, science, facts, etc. O'Reilly's in a panic over that here in the U.S. He should be in a panic because he's on the losing side, the one with no facts. Now, in this particular case, well, I'm going to ask the people of each of those religions to take your religion back if you believe the correct interpretation of that religion is a positive one, right? So that applies to Muslims. Hey, you got to... Now, that doesn't mean every Muslim is responsible for some idiot jihadist. Doesn't mean they have to apologize for the jihadist. But engage in the cultural war. Say Islam stands for science, and we led in science for about 1,000 years throughout the world. Make that argument. I don't really care because I'm not in your religion which side is more correct in their interpretation of the Quran, right? In this case, in the Bible. If you think that it is the more religious thing to do to be more hateful, well, how do you expect other people to like your religion? I mean, what does that say about your religion, right? So again, all the religions are guilty of this, but he happens to be a Christian. He's Catholic, right? So what am I to think of Catholicism if you tell me being more Catholic means I hate gay people more, I want to discriminate against gay people more? Well, then that means your religion is more hateful. Well, if you're a good Catholic and you believe in a positive interpretation of the Bible, then have that fight with Manny Pacquiao, not in the ring. Okay, and say, no, Jesus brought love to the world, right? And the whole point of the New Testament is to say, put that junk from the Old Testament behind. Make that argument, win that argument, engage in that cultural war.
Yeah, ironically enough, the Pope's been making that argument, and he's gotten a lot of heat for that. He says, why don't we shift our focus away from hating gay people and helping the poor? And there were some members of the Catholic Church that didn't like that message. But that's really what you should take away from religion. Religion isn't supposed to be interpreted literally, right?
And every Catholic doesn't have to apologize for Manny Pacquiao. You don't have to prove, anything. You don't have to be, interrogated. You don't have to be profiled. And the Pope speaks for Catholics a hell of a lot more than Manny Pacquiao does. But there is a battle of ideas, and you should be on the side of reason and logic and decency. Even if you think I'm deeply religious and I care more about faith than I do in, I don't want to paint in a negative light, but facts and science. Okay, and there's value in faith, right? Well, say that faith represents all the good things in the world rather than the hatred.
All right. The Grammys happened last night, and Kanye West did not win a Grammy, but he did go on a Twitter rant to talk about white publications, or at least publications that are run by white individuals, and how they should not talk about rap or hip-hop music because they don't know what it's like to be a descendant of a black slave. So this is another one of his Twitter rants that goes crazy, and he says the following. So he goes to Pitchfork, which, by the way, gave him a 9 out of 10 on his latest record.
But not good enough.
Not good enough. He says to Pitchfork, Rolling Stone, New York Times, and any other white publication, please do not comment on black music anymore.
What if it's a black writer at a quote-unquote white publication? And what makes it a white publication?
No, he's already deemed these publications white. Even if you're black and you're writing for one of these white publications, still a white publication, you're not allowed to write about black music, so-called black music. Okay. I love white people. Okay.
Oh, we got a funny way of showing it. Okay.
But you don't understand what it means to be the great-grandson of ex-slaves and make it this far. Okay. By the way, let's stop for a second. This is the same guy who went on a Twitter rant just a few days ago begging Zuckerberg to fund his, music, right?
Yeah.
A white guy to fund his music.
Yeah.
So you're okay with someone investing $1 billion into your music, but you're not okay with so-called white publications writing about you. By the way, he is okay with white publications writing about him. He wants attention. That's exactly what he's getting.
So I got an idea. Well, why don't black musicians, by the way, this only applies to Kanye because he's the only one doing it, stop begging white billionaires for money? Ooh, I can't turn it around, right? Okay, so look, we take this issue very seriously on the show, and we talk about it all the time, that history rains down on us through the generations. It's true. So the history of slavery in this country is not irrelevant to today. It doesn't mean that any white person that's out there right now is responsible. They didn't do the slavery, right? And so people often say that in a way, they just dismiss the whole topic. Man, it wasn't me, man. That was a long time ago. We know it wasn't you, right? Mm-hmm. But that put a lot of African Americans in this country, and then the Jim Crow and the discrimination and all that, put them in a situation where they had lower wage jobs. They had a lot less wealth than the average white family. In fact, to this day, the disparity is enormous. More than 10 to 1 white families have greater household wealth, and it is because of the socioeconomic conditions that African Americans grew up in. But this jackass wants to come in and take ownership over that. And even though he's a multi-millionaire, but he thinks, I don't have enough millions of dollars. Yesterday, he said that those billionaires, the white billionaires as he would call them, didn't do the right thing by giving to schools in Africa. They should have just given it to him instead. So don't pretend you care about the African American cause, or that somehow you're affected because you're the great-grandson of ex-slaves while you're living in your mansions on top of mansions and talking about how you're $53 million in debt because you're such an idiot that you couldn't manage any of the enormous amount of money you made, and then go begging for more money, and then fall back on the excuse of, well, I'm black, so if you're white, you can't criticize me. Okay, well, I don't know what we are. I mean, we get called olive all the time. Are we allowed to criticize you? Are we allowed to? I don't know. Maybe I should ask for permission from Kanye first.
Yeah. Oh, I kind of like being called olive.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all.
Olives are delicious. Anyway, he also says the system is designed for colored people to fail, and one of our only voices is music. One of our only ways out is music. Okay, I got it. And you used music to become a success story, but then you messed it up. I don't know what happened to him. And honestly, there's a part of me that thinks that he does have some sort of mental issue. And that's why I kind of hold back from going too hard against him. But there's something up with him. Like his sense of entitlement, he might be a sociopath, to be honest, right? I mean, he has absolutely no self-awareness. He doesn't appreciate even good articles written about him. Pitchfork rated his latest album 9 out of 10. And you know what he responded back to them? Pitchfork, the album was 30 out of 10. Agree to disagree.
If you don't give it a 30 out of 10, you're white and you're not allowed to talk about it. No. There is a fine line between incredibly stupid and mentally ill, and I don't know which side of that line Kanye lies.
Right. All right. Ronda Rousey recently had an interview with Ellen, and during that interview, she talked about the match that she lost against Holly Holm. And as you guys can imagine, it was a really difficult time for her, especially because it was a very public way of her to be defeated. Now, she talks about how she even contemplated suicide after losing the fight. She says the following: I was literally sitting there and thinking about killing myself, and that exact second, I'm like, I'm nothing. What do I do anymore? And no one gives a shit about me anymore without this. So I thought about that, and I'm not surprised at all. I mean, the memes that were out there, the people that were saying terrible things about her, I would not want to go through something like that.
Well, that's interesting. I wondered if she'd gotten hit too hard. Like the depression to the point of considering suicide, it just kind of reminded me of all the concussion stories from football. Look, this is the path that you have chosen, right? So there's a sport where you get kicked in the head. And sometimes when you get kicked in the head, it's embarrassing because you get knocked out. You got the pictures that we showed you. Don't get me wrong. Anybody would, I get it. Anybody would be embarrassed. There's a picture of them being like, as they get hit in the kicked in the head and then knocked the fuck out, right? We get it. But that's your sport. And you got to pick yourself up and then come and try to knock her out. If you're considering giving up after one loss, oh, that doesn't speak well.
I don't think it was just the loss, right? Like, the loss is already brutal enough. And the damage that's done to your face in a very public way is bad enough. But it's the people piling on right after you lose, right? I think that we're in a really unique time for every type of career, especially any type of professional athletics, because if you are heard shit-talking right before the match, as she was, and that's very common when it comes to boxing or MMA or any type of fight like that, it sucks after you get kicked in the face and knocked out, and then all of a sudden you have all these people making fun of you. And that's exactly what happened. And when you're in the middle of all of that, it's kind of hard to remember that at some point it's going to fade and people are going to forget.
Yeah, and you got to live with that if you're in this profession. Even Muhammad Ali lost. You got to pick yourself up. Look, this is larger than Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey, okay, she felt depressed. We'll tell you how she got out of it in a second, got out of the fight. But it's about all of us. Look, if you're expecting to go through life undefeated, I got bad news for you. That's not how life works. So it isn't whether you lose. You're invariably going to lose at whatever you're doing at some point, and oftentimes have a really bad loss, or maybe have a lot of losses. It isn't whether you lose, it's whether you get back up and fight again.
Yeah.
Right?
Life will kick you in the face almost every single day in one way or another. The question is it going to be a light kick to the face, or is it going to be a really brutal kick to the face?
So it isn't a matter whether you get knocked out. It's a matter whether you get back up.
Exactly. So how did she get out of her funk? Well, she says, I looked up at my boyfriend and I was like, I need to have his babies. I need to stay alive.
See, that's wonderfully honest. Now, there's some issues with that, because feminists might say, you were number one in the world, or I don't even know if she was, but the hype was certainly that. In your particular profession, you should want to get back up and succeed at whatever you want to do, not just to have his babies. But that's how she felt, so that's how she felt.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I can't stand when anyone, feminist or not, judges someone else's reason for being happy. And if that's her reason for being happy, if that's what she looks forward to, that's awesome. And you know what? Sometimes your family and your loved ones are more important than what your career has to offer. It can make you happier than what your career can offer. You know what I mean? So I totally understand what she's saying there. Finally, her last quote, I did a lot of thinking and I was like, why did this happen? I do believe all the best things come from the worst things. Every worst thing that happened in my life resulted in the absolute best things. And then the rest of it was, so I'm thinking maybe just winning all the time isn't what's best for everybody.
To which I say, of course! In fact, if all you ever did was win, first of all, it's not really possible, but even if it were possible, you'd probably be unbearable.
Yeah, I was going to say you'd probably be like Kanye West, but he doesn't win all the time, and he's still unbearable.
That's true. But look, the minute somebody gives him a 9 out of 10 rating on his album, he loses it.
I know.
Because in his life, he's been so entitled that he expects a 30 out of 10 on everything. So, yeah, unbearable is... So, yes, a little humility goes a long way. And yes, getting knocked out with a kick to the head will give you a little humility.
Absolutely. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to give you an update on what happened to that anti-Beyonce rally in New York.